Hello guys and girls, this is Tziatas for Sparrow LEATHERCRAFT, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make a tablet case just like this one using one of my patterns. Okay, let's start with an overview of the actual tablet case. First of all, the closure, I used magnets or snap magnets or how those things are called. You can of course use simple snap fasteners or snap buttons, but I prefer the magnets because it just makes it so much easier to open and close, and I think it's secure enough. Now when we open the flap here, we see our pen loop, our touch pen, and the tablet itself comes out. Now you can see, probably, we don't have leather inside. We have a fabric lining. I used a soft and thick wool fabric, which on the one hand gives a little bit of extra padding and protection for the tablet, and on the other hand, it makes the tablet slide in and out nicer. Another feature I like is the charging port, so we can just thread our cable through here and charge the tablet while it's in the case. And my favorite feature is this. We have this lip here on the lid, on the inside of the lid, where we can put our tablet in. We can just lift the flap here on the back, and now we have a standing tablet. So we have a tablet sleeve and a tablet stand in one, so this makes it just so much more comfortable to use a tablet while on the road. Okay, first of all I use my pattern to cut out the pieces from the leather. If you want a detailed instruction on how to use the patterns, I have a video on my channel where I show you exactly how to glue the pattern pieces together and how to use them to cut out exactly the pieces from the leather. Now for this project we need 4 pieces basically. The pen loop, the inner piece of the lid, the front of the sleeve, and the back of the sleeve, which has the piece for the lid, or for the closure of the tablet sleeve. Now if you want to use a fabric lining like I did, you just need to use the front piece of the sleeve, the one without the lid, lay it on top of your fabric, trace it out, and cut out 2 pieces of fabric. One for the front side of the sleeve and one for the back side of the sleeve. Also I would recommend to cut the fabric pieces a little bit bigger than the front piece of the sleeve, so that when we glue them together, there's a bit of excess material from the fabric that we then can cut off after the fact to make everything line up perfectly. Now the first step is punching all the stitching holes. There are 2 options. One option is to use the holes marked on the pattern and just punching out one hole after the other. And the other option is to use a tool like this to mark your stitching line, and then use diamond prongs or whatever tool you like to punch out your own stitching holes. Right, let's get started marking our stitching line, and also the holes for the magnets or snap fasteners or whatever you like. So I'm gonna start with the front side of the sleeve, and I'm gonna take the pattern piece, just lay it on top of it. Now, as you can see, here we have the holes marked for the buttons, either for the magnets or the snap fasteners or whatever you like to use. Just make a little dent. We have our holes all around, and as you can see we have these 2 marks here. These marks are for marking where we're gonna stitch the 2 holes of the case together. As you can see below the lines, I say 2 sides and 2 linings. It's where we hold the whole case together. And the top stitches here are just so that we stitch the lining, if you're using one, together with your leather piece. If you're not using a lining, you can just ignore these top holes. But if you want to use it, it will be good for you to not only glue it together, but also stitch the lining together with the leather here on the top side. And it's the same thing on the back side of the case. So I am just gonna mark these 2 spots here, so I know from where to where I have to stitch the lining So where I'm gonna stitch the lining together with the leather, and where I'm gonna stop this stitch and start stitching together the two sides of the case. I'm just gonna do the same with the back side. As you can see, we have the same marks here and here. Also, another spot where we're just gonna stitch the lining together with the leather is here on the charging port. Of course we don't, or we can't even stitch this hole here together with the other side or with the other half of the case. And one more piece we have to mark is the inside of the flap. So what you wanna mark here is the holes for the magnets, of course, again. But what you also wanna mark is, as you can see, the stitching line. The one stitching line doesn't go all the way to the edge, and that's because we need flap. We need this extra space where we can wedge the tablet in for the stand functionality. So I'm just gonna make two little holes here and here. Lay the pattern on my leather piece. Put everything up. Mark where the holes for the bottoms is gonna go, and then mark the two sides of the stitching line, which I can then use a ruler to draw on the leather. Okay, now that I have marked the holes for the magnets and the one stitching line that is here in the middle of the lid, I can just use this tool and trace all around the edges where I need to place my stitching line. On here on the lid we have another extra step. We just need to use our ruler and connect the two stitching lines here from corner to corner, where this stitching line is where we gonna connect the back piece of our sleeve with the fabric piece, because the fabric piece won't go all the way to the lid here. It's gonna stop here, so we need a stitch along this side to keep everything nice and together. Now we have marked all our stitching holes. The next thing we need to do before doing anything else is to mark the slits that we're gonna use to install our magnets. Now, if you want to use snap fasteners, normal snap buttons, you can just punch the holes and install them now. But if you want to use magnets, there are magnets that install like the snap fasteners, like with a rivet type of closure, but the ones I have right now are those little guys with the wings. Yeah, we have the male and we have the female side, and they have these little wings and a back plate that looks like that. And the way we're gonna install these is we're gonna use the back plate, line the center hole up with the hole we marked, and we're gonna use a scratch out to mark the two slits here on the side, left and right. Same thing on the other hole. Okay, great. And now we're just gonna use our blade to cut these slits into the leather so that the wings from our magnets can go through. Okay, now we want the female side on the main body, on the front of the sleeve, and we just push it through like that, through the holes we just cut. One. Now we have them in, we flip it around, put the back plate on, and fold these metal wings out, just like that. Same thing on the lid. Just like that. And we have our magnets installed. Yeah, checking everything's lined up nicely. We have our closure system. Now, something really important. If you don't want to use fabric lining like I did and just want a pure leather, what you need to do is glue some thin pieces of leather on the inside of this magnets or snap buttons or whatever you want to use, because this will scratch up your screen pretty badly if you just leave it like this, and we don't want that to happen. On the lid this is not a problem because we have this inside part of the lid which is gonna be stitched together with the outside part of the lid, and it will cover these metal parts, so that's no problem. But on the front part of the sleeve, these back sides of our snap buttons or magnets or whatever we're gonna use need to be covered to protect our electronics. Now the next step is, if you wanna use a fabric lining, is to glue it in before we start punching all the stitching holes and so on. One preparation step is to take like the back side, put it flat down, put the top side on it, and mark this line here, which is going to mark until which spot we have to apply the glue and to which line we need to bring the fabric lining. And now that we have this line marked, we can just take one piece of fabric and this piece of leather, cover both surfaces with our glue, and then just stick them together. Okay, now I have my fabric piece all glued in. Now what I want to do is prep and install this piece here, which is gonna go on the inside of the main lid. What I will need to do is to bevel the edges front and back of the little flap here on the side. If you remember, we marked it, which is gonna hold the tablet upright. We need to do that before gluing it to the main piece. And yeah, then we're just gonna glue it together, line everything up and attach it to the main back piece of the sleeve, so we can then punch the holes, stitch it together, and so on and so on. Now, one thing we need to be careful of is that we don't want to glue the whole thing to the main body. We need to leave the side here, which is gonna support our tablet for the standing functionality, and leave it unglued. So I'm just gonna lay it here on top, use my scratch awl, and make a little mark on the two sides where I need to stop and not apply glue. So right here and here, you just can connect that with a line from here to here, just like that. And on this piece, of course, two, right here and right here, and again draw a line. So now I know where to apply my glue. I'm just gonna apply it and combine the two pieces. Okay, now we have our lid and our fabric glued in. The next step is to cut off the excess fabric from our leather pieces, as well as if we have any excess leather here where we glued the two ins and outs of the lid together, to cut that off too, so that everything lines up nice and smoothly, and then we're gonna move on to punching all the stitching holes. Alright guys, now we are ready to start our first stitches. We have our pen loop glued in its pen loop form and the stitching holes punched, and we also have our lid, all the holes punched, and also our back piece together with the lid. What I would first stitch together is the inside of the lid with the outside, with the holes we have already punched. And then, if you remember, we marked a spot here on the side, which tells us that we will stitch above this mark the lining together with the main body of the sleeve together. And after that, we can glue our two sides of our sleeve together, or actually gluing it together is not necessary since we have already all the holes punched, but then we can align the two halves of the sleeve and stitch the whole thing together. So let's just get started with stitching the lid together. Alright, as you can see now, I started stitching together from the mark we made on the front side of the tablet sleeve to the other mark we made, but only, as you can see, the fabric lining with the leather on the outside. Later we're gonna do the same thing on the back side of the lid, and after that we can stitch both halves together to complete the tablet sleeve. Alright, as you can see now, I have here the back side of the tablet sleeve, and I'm stitching together the fabric lining with the outer leather piece. At this point, right here, approximately in the middle of the height of the tablet sleeve, but you can really put it wherever you like, we have to sew our pen loop in. So I already have the holes punched in the pen loop. We have the holes punched here, so I'm just gonna feed the needle through and feed it through the first hole on our pen loop here. And the thread from here, pull it out, go with the other needle in, and just regular saddle stitch action, pulling tight, make sure that the thread here goes to the correct place, like this, and pull tight. And now we can just keep stitching like we were. The 2 extra layers of leather, but it's manageable. Alright guys, now we have this top side stitched on the front side, as well as here, the same top side and the 2 halves together, and we have our pen loop attached. Now, what I like to do before assembling the whole thing is to bevel the edges from the outside, both on the back piece and on the front piece. It's just easier to do it now before assembly. So now everything lies nice and flat, and yeah, it just makes it easier to do it now than after the assembly. And after that, just take the 2 pieces, line them up, close the lid, or don't close it, and stitch all the way around to finish our sheath. Alright, we're ready for our pretty much last step now, to stitch both sides together. And after that we're just gonna slick the edges and polish them a little bit so that everything comes together nicely, and then we are ready. A detail you want to watch out for: here at the charging hole, you're just gonna keep stitching straight only through the front of the case, and then you're just gonna start stitching again through both sides. So that it looks like this in the end. Alright guys, that's it. We're done. We have a finished tablet sleeve. This specific one is for a 12.9 inch iPad Pro, I think. But yeah, I will have many different sizes available on my website. And if you need a specific or custom size, just drop me a message. Maybe if I have time, I can make one for you, adjust the size so you can fit your tablet exactly in it. And yeah, if you just made yours, I hope it turned out well. I think that's it for this video. So, you know, if you like the video, please like it. If you want to see more, subscribe, and maybe even hit that bell down in the corner. And if you have any questions, just drop me a comment. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.